didn't want to be a part of that. And they focused their energies on Russell Wilson to the point where over the weekend, the two sides got closer and closer to a deal shortly after the Giants had reached agreement with Jameis Winston. Now, Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson have a good relationship, and I think that was part of this, getting two quarterbacks that know each other, that like each other, that are willing to work together into New York. And Russell Wilson was talking with the Giants, and he was talking with the Browns, and also there was contact with the Steelers as well. But ultimately, the Giants were the team that he wanted to play for. He wanted to go back to MetLife Stadium, where he won Super Bowl 48 as the starting quarterback for the Seahawks, and they make the deal happen yesterday when they work out the numbers and come up with a deal that could be worth over $20 million, including $10.5 million guaranteed. Now, how does this impact the Giants quarterback room going forward with the draft? It really doesn't. They have Jameis Winston, they have Russell Wilson, and if the right quarterback is there at number 3, or they can trade up, they would not hesitate and secure the long-term future of this franchise. But it would have to be the right quarterback. And I don't know whether that's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, or whether they would even take Shedeur Sanders at 3. But if one of those quarterbacks, clearly they like Cam Ward, if he were available and they could get him, I don't think they'd hesitate at all in taking him and securing the long-term future of this team.
Golly, I mean, it feels like Cam Ward's not going to still be there, especially with the expectations that he'd be number 1 overall. Lewis, you're our resident GM here. What would you do? Should the Giants now just take the best player available, or should they try to draft Shedeur still?
Well, they shouldn't try and draft Shedeur, Laura, if they don't really like him, if they don't really love him. Let's put it that way. Because, look, John Mara wants to, as Adam is alluding to, the long-term future of this franchise secured at quarterback. He doesn't want them to just kind of pacify him and take someone just for the sake of taking him. So if you don't like Shedeur, and Cam's going to be gone, Tennessee's going to take him. I mean, why wouldn't they? They'd be foolish not to. He's going to be gone, and I think it will turn into one of these situations where they'll take best player available, and maybe they will somewhere try to trade back up into the first round and see if they can get the best of both worlds, meaning they can improve this football team dramatically from an offensive perspective now with Russell and Jameis, while at the same time maybe hitching their wagon to someone else who maybe they love at a different level, meaning at a different draft level late in the first round, and still tell John Mara, look, we're still looking towards the future as well. That's the only way I see this really playing out, because this doesn't sound like Shedeur's their guy. And so I think, I would look for them to go elsewhere when their pick comes up and they're on the clock at 3.
Well, you also heard the Titans general manager, Mike Borgonzi, say that he's open to anything. And so he's going to be listening to phone calls. It doesn't mean that the Giants will be able to make it up to 1. But I expect the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants both to make calls. And let's see if there's a team that can come up with an offer that the Titans can't pass up. Yes, the Titans absolutely do like Cam Ward. Yes, they're ready to take him. But these teams have 1 month to try to change Tennessee's mind and make an offer compelling enough to move Tennessee, which has a ton of holes on its roster, off the number 1 pick.
I'll tell you what, this for me would have to be like a Mike Ditka style, hey, take my entire draft so I can move up to 1 type of deal. Because based upon what I saw in terms of Brian Callahan down there in Miami just two days ago, and talking to Mike Borgonzi on the sideline, as Cam was throwing, or actually before he threw, to me it sounds like, look, they have kind of really zeroed in on him. And look, maybe they do take some calls from other people. Maybe some teams are that desperate where they say, hey, look, Cam is a guy who we will basically give you anything for in order to get up into that position. But for me, it would have to be, like I'm telling you, it'd have to be, well, just give me your entire draft, and I'll let you go ahead up here. Because why would I pass on, especially after the performance that young man put on? There's just no way I would pass on him from Tennessee. There's no way.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here, guys. Let's go back to the Giants for a second. This is a team that, by all accounts, wanted to trade up last year for Drake May and couldn't. So I'm not surprised to hear they would like to be aggressive again this year to maybe go up and get Cam Ward. I'm with Lou. I don't know that Tennessee is willing to move out of that spot. It would probably take a lot to do it. But let's go back to the Giants, because let's not forget, they went all in on Daniel Jones last year. We're not exactly talking about Bill Walsh in the way that they've evaluated the quarterback situation for the football Giants. This has been Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley. That's the way they wanted to build this team. Now they're on the brink of being fired if they don't get this right. So I think there is a lot of pressure for the Giants to where if Cam Ward can be attained via a trade-up, you have to at least go down that road. But I feel like this is a contingency plan for the fact that maybe Shedeur Sanders goes number 2 overall to the Cleveland Browns. And you could be, just like last year, sitting there on the board with all the quarterbacks that you fancied off the board because you couldn't move up. So whereas last year they couldn't really secure the back end of the quarterback room to say, okay, the quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3. We can't draft one. We'll take Malik Neighbors. And we could have the conversation that they should have taken Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix, who all went in the top 15. But to me, guys, this does feel like a team that's saying, just in case we don't want to get stuck in the corner again, looking at all the teams drafting a quarterback, now we've got a veteran and someone that we could probably win 7, 8 games with, given the current state of this roster.
Adam, I saw you shaking your head no.
Well, my read on this is I don't believe right now, and again, a month ago, I thought that Cleveland was going to be in the quarterback market, but I think that they were going to be there because they like Cam Ward. I don't know that they would go Shedeur at 2. So, which is why we're back to the point of what we do know. The Titans, to Lou's point, absolutely love Cam Ward. I think the Browns do too. I think the Giants like him too. So I think 2, Cleveland, 3, the Giants, maybe even 9 in New Orleans, to make some kind of offer that's compelling enough to move the Titans off the pick, which is not going to be easy to do, which is not what I expect to happen. But let's see how aggressive some team gets and how badly one of these other team wants Cam Ward, who certainly looks like right now he is destined to be the number 1 pick, likely to Tennessee. But we got a lot of time to go and a lot of calls to get through.
Yeah, look, man, the Giants have they've covered all their bases, right? They've got a guy who they know is a backup in Jameis. Okay, you know he is not going to take you anywhere that is going to really satisfy John Mara. You have a guy in Russ who still fancies himself as being a starter, who says, hey, with the right situation around me, I can still get you 8, 9, 10 wins, maybe get you a wild card spot. And then there's the draft where they're trying to secure the long-term future. Look, they're in a hell of a spot. They put themselves in this spot, but they're in a hell of a spot right now. And it does seem like, look, everyone is after one quarterback in this draft. And then after that, everyone else is sitting there scratching their head. Well, we're not quite sure. This guy may not have the arm strength. This guy got hurt a little bit too much. This guy played in the spread type of offense down there in Oxford. I'm not quite sure. It's a hell of a spot to be in if you're not Tennessee right now. Yeah. It really is, which, quite honestly, I'll tell you what I would do if I were all these teams. I would look inward and make sure that my developmental program is airtight, that I'm doing everything I can, because you're not going to get the guy who everyone considers to be maybe the surefire number 1 lock, meaning the guy who doesn't have many questions at all, and that being Cam Ward.
Yeah, you're going to have to do some work on whoever you get. And by the way, guys, I love this note. The only team to add a Super Bowl winning quarterback and draft a quarterback in the first round in the same offseason was the 2004 Giants. They signed Kurt Warner and drafted Phillip Rivers 4th overall, who they then traded for Eli Manning. Just really interesting tie there. All right, the Patriots, let's talk about them and what happened with the latest news there. They had nearly $130 million in cap space entering free agency, over $30 million more than the next closest team. That's the Raiders at $98 million. And they made use of it. They signed Stephon Diggs yesterday, which now adds up to New England handing out $194 million in guaranteed money so far this offseason, $55 million more than the next closest team, which is the Vikings at $139 million. Adam, we start with you. How did this come about? And what does it mean for the Patriots now drafting at number 4?
Well, Laura, we saw the Patriots check in with Stephon Diggs about a week ago. He traveled to Foxborough, went through a physical. They got a chance to look at him, talk to him about his knee, the ACL that he tore in Week 8 last year against the Colts. And after that visit, I think there was contact with some other teams. I think the Broncos checked in. I think the Jaguars checked in. I think other teams were just checking in. But the Patriots certainly seemed to want Diggs to the most, to the point where they wound up offering him a 3-year, $69 million contract with $26 million guaranteed. New England got the number 1 wide receiver it desperately needed to match with Drake May, who they took with the 3rd overall pick in last year's draft.